Well, good evening and welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ+ daily evening television news. We're broadcasting live and then available on demand. We're available on all smart televisions, including Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, Amazon Fire TV, and of course, YouTube and Facebook. It's time to queer up the news. It's Wednesday, November 2nd, 2022, and we're literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Al Ferguson, and this evening we bring you the news of and a perspective representing the LGBTQ+ community from South Florida, America, and across our planet.
This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ+ evening news show. Whatever happens unique in LGBTQ+ news, you will see it and hear it.
Happening Out Television Network is a 501c3 nonprofit media platform in the television and radio models of PBS and NPR, but designed for our LGBTQ+ community.
We are part of the largest LGBTQ+ media companies in America, Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network.
Our magazine is celebrating 37 years of the LGBTQ+ experience, and our television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ+ and broader community.
Well, let's welcome anchor FayWhat. She's a radio and television personality and has a popular blog and YouTube channel aiming to unite the L and the G together. She's a hostess and MC for many South Florida events, an animal advocate, and owner of Fay's Fur Family. Also, make sure to catch the FayWhat Show, the first LGBTQ+ morning show, Mondays at 9 a.m. Eastern, online or your smart TV. Good evening, Fay.
Good evening, boys. And if you missed the FayWhat Show on Monday, make sure you go back and watch it on demand. I interviewed the drag superstar Prince Trilla and also had this real hottie boy in bed with me, Jamal, talking about all things LGBTQ+. Make sure you check it out. Next, let's welcome anchor John Hayden, a journalist for 27 years. He now works for several outlets, including South Florida Gay News, as a reporter and community editor, covering politics, entertainment, and local events directly impacting the LGBTQ+ community. John's interviewed everyone from presidents to Oscar winners and been on more red carpets than he can count. Also, he's gotten his ballot by mail, filled it out, and returned it. What's your excuse? Welcome, John.
Thank you so much. Yes, and you can return your ballot until 7 o'clock our time on Tuesday. That's Election Day. Just take it to your poll, hand it in. They can take care of it there. And we can early vote, I believe, until Sunday afternoon.
I understand in Atlanta you can return your ballot until 7 p.m. and you can return multiple ballots. Maybe I got that wrong.
Don't listen to him, America.
I'm a little chesty today. Well, let's move on and welcome one of my 4 closest friends in the world sitting at this table, Ryan Hurst. Ryan is the marketing and fundraising manager for the National LGBTQ Task Force. He has worked in social justice for over 10 years with organizations including Lambda Legal Defense and Education Fund and People for the American Way Foundation. He also serves as the vice president of Florida State University Pride Alumni Network. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you for having me. Go Noles, beat the Canes. Let's welcome anchor Gregg.
You know you're in South Florida, right?
I do.
You're in South Florida.
I don't. Greg doesn't understand what you just said, by the way.
I'm unapologetically a Seminole.
Right.
Are you a Seminole vesicle?
Yes, often. Let's welcome anchor Gregg Shapiro, an inductee into the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame. Gregg is an author of 8 books, including his latest, Fear of Muses, an entertainment journalist whose celebrity interviews and music reviews run in a variety of regional LGBTQ+ and mainstream publications and websites. His movie review column, called Screensaver, can be found in South Florida Gay News, San Francisco's Bay Area Reporter, RottenTomatoes.com, and more. Good evening, Gregg.
Good evening, everyone. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ+ community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast. And here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Wednesday, November 2nd, 2022, National Stress Awareness Day. Perfectly timed to arrive exactly 1 week before the midterms.
Exactly.
This show's already stressing me, so let's see.
All right. Well, let's begin by queering up drag culture. Church pastor launches Drag Queen Bible Story Hour to protest Florida Governor DeSantis. Florida has become a scary place for drag queens, and Texas and Idaho, well, across America in 2022. Drag queens have been pulled into the culture war from the radical right to sell a fear message to parents that drag queens are sexualizing their children, and worse. The phrase grooming has been a common reference of drag queen story hours at libraries and other locations by governors Ron DeSantis and Texas Governor Abbott, and more. Here in South Florida, the restaurant Our House in Miami Wynwood District has been threatened by Florida for loss of liquor license because of their long-running drag Sunday brunch. There have been protests, sometimes even violent ones, in locations across America at drag queen events like these. So when the pastor of the world's largest queer church announced that they would host a series of drag queen Bible story hours, it received Queer News Tonight's attention. Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church located in Fort Lauderdale, will host 4 holiday Bible story hours for Advent. Advent is a month-long pre-Christmas holiday celebration observed in most Christian denominations as a time of expectant waiting and preparation for both the celebration of the Nativity of Christ at Christmas and the return of Christ at the second coming. It literally means the beginning of the holiday season. Senior Minister Reverend Dr. Darrell Watkins will host 4 Drag Queen Bible Story Hours every Wednesday starting November 30th, then December 7, 14, and 21. He will present in glam drag as Reverend Dr. Dragvina Scriptura. She will read fun and relevant Bible stories with a new and interesting twist. The Drag Queen Bible Story Hour will be appropriate for all ages. When Queer News Tonight asked Watkins why a program like this would be planned, he said, quote, "It's Advent. Christian faith is welcoming to the entire LGBTQ community, and drag queens are some of the best and most entertaining representations of that community." This is also a statement in support of the art of drag, the drag community, and the wholesomeness of drag story hours, end quote. The 4 programs will feature 4 drag personas of hope, peace, joy, and love, which are traditional Advent themes. Reverend Dr. Dragvina Scriptura stories from the Bible will show that gender bending exists, and there was even drag in biblical times. Other themes promised are that both religion and gender are largely performative, that drag can be empowering, and that makes it holy. Even the articles of wigs and makeup included in Bible stories show that they don't make a person good or bad, but they can make you feel more fabulous. Reverend Dr. Dragvina Scriptura promises to deliver a fun time in experiencing drag in an entirely new way. Details for Drag Queen Bible Story Hour will be available at sunshinecathedral.org. Super interesting idea. I did some research today when this news came out, and I could not find a single reference in Google of an active pastor in a church doing an ongoing series of any biblical programs in drag. So this is groundbreaking because of it. Yeah.
But leave it up to Darrell. I mean, you know, he's just that kind of a man, you know? And like most churches, they give you like crumbs. They give you breadcrumbs, right? All are welcome. Go right ahead. But you're not part of the Bible. You're not part of historical times. Dr. Reverend Darrell, he's different about it.
Dragvina.
Dragvina.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I don't want to, you know. He's different, you know. I mean, she's different. Excuse me. You know, she shows us how we are a part of biblical times. Yeah. We are a part of history.
Scriptura.
Scriptura, for sure. So I definitely am looking forward to this. Like at Unity already on the Bay, the church that I go to, we have a drag queen in the choir, right? It's not because of,
cool.
because we want, it's just cause she's a drag queen and she's in the, in the choir. But this visibility helps people that have maybe never been around a drag queen, or start hearing these ridiculous things that they're always calling drag queens groomers when that's not the case at all.
It's ridiculous.
I just, last week, I interviewed out of drag, Reverend Dr. Gregg Vina, and his husband and spiritual partner, co-pastor here, Reverend Dr. Griffin. And Reverend Watkins, always, every time I've talked with him, he always says this is a queer church. It's open and welcome to everyone, but it is conscious of the queerness of our community and the desperate need for spirituality. So I truly do hope, and by the way, nothing has happened with the Our House so far. They're still dealing with, just an update on that. I'm in touch regularly with their people. But I really hope someone comes to the first one on November 30th, takes a picture or a video and shows how benign it is and posts it and dares Ron DeSantis and his goons to come into a church in week 2, 3, or 4 and break it up. Because otherwise, you're just about approving whatever the person is reading, and it will expose the hypocrisy.
From Drag Vina, I'm sure that she's probably figured that out.
Do you think there would be like an advent calendar behind the doors, and there'll be like a bugle bead or a sequin or a false eyelash? Wouldn't that be kind of cool?
You never
That
know.
would be fun.
You never know with drag Vina. You never know.
You know what I love about this story is that as Christians, we're encouraged to live lives in imitation of Christ. And if you read the Gospels, one thing that Christ does consistently throughout is point out the hypocrisy of religious leaders when it comes to treating those that are marginalized and oppressed with kindness and love and mercy. And I think this is a perfect example of how we can do that in a fun way.
Yeah.
So bravo.
And one last thing, LGBTQ plus folks, sometimes, we're afraid to go to religious places, right? We grew up maybe Catholic, or we grew up with people telling us that we are an abomination, right? Sunshine Cathedral is not that place. Me and Al were blessed to go with both reverends to Italy. And while being in the Vatican, folks, the Vatican, okay? Dr. Reverend, they were like, okay, look at this. Let's look at it this way. There was a queer person back then. Let me show you, There was so much to learn about queer history, and, don't close yourself out to that. Go check it out, really.
One last thought that relates to that. Faye and I do go through all over Italy, and Watkins and Jarrell and Robert do that all over Italy. One of the things that I think is really cool about this Advent program that they're going to do as a pre-holiday leading up to the Christmas celebration is Dragvina Sculptura keeps the professional name, Reverend Dr.
Absolutely.
He still has full loan. He still has full loan.
That's
Through seminary.
right. That's right. I'm going to pay for those student loans no matter what. I've earned those. I think that's great.
For sure.
All right, well, we move on and we queer up South Florida gay news. This is the last call for voting. Don't let it be the last call for democracy. Florida is likely less than a week away from dropping all pretense of being a purple state and just being red. In this week's SFGN, online and on stands tomorrow, I look at how Democrats are storming the state to stop all of that from happening, as evidenced by President Biden's visit to South Florida yesterday. These past few weeks, I've spent a lot of time at the Get Out the Vote Center in the heart of Wilton Drive. Today, former and possibly future Governor Charlie Crist stopped by to kickstart enthusiasm and erase voter apathy. Senate candidate Val Demings came by previously to deliver a powerful speech. And over the weekend, CFO candidate Adam Hattersley told me, quote, if people knew the effects of these offices that they have on their daily, day-to-day lives, there's no way they'd vote in a single incumbent back to Tennessee. He's right. So-called conservatives passed $1 billion tax increase. They routinely meddle in local politics and are intimately inserting themselves into personal health decisions. Republicans aren't conservatives, they're authoritarians, and they're probably going to win in a landslide. As Democrats make their closing arguments, you can read my interviews in SFGN online and on stands tomorrow. And if enough of us vote, just maybe we'll be having a different conversation next week at this time. And boy, I tell you, the numbers just look so bad. The early voting numbers in South Florida are not meeting what they need to be. I haven't seen one poll yet that shows Crist anywhere near a lead, although today, and I think you said it dropped last night, but today he was referencing a poll that said he was up by 6 points, and I just haven't seen it. The Real Clear Politics average shows him down an average of 12.3 in each poll. So, I mean, it's not even going to, it won't even be close by national standards, much less Florida close.
I'm curious in terms of the article that you've done for South Florida Gay News. I was with you today at the Get Out the Vote Center for Congressman Crist, his presentation to the LGBT community. Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz introduces him. Dean Trentalis, Mayor of Fort Lauderdale, introduces her. I mean, they pulled out the heavyweights today for Wilton Drive. But to your point, and in your article, in terms of what the early turnouts are and what's going on, where has this been going awry? We are all advocates in one way or another, whether it be media or the National Task Force or various different things we've done that we do. Where is it going awry of why we haven't been able to motivate and galvanize the LGBTQ community?
Well, I think a lot of it goes back 2 years. The seeds for this devastating loss were sown in the 2020 election. Governor DeSantis has been able to really be a bully for the last 2 years. Redistricting, Carlos Guillermo Smith is in a tight race, in a race that used to be very easy. And there's just not a lot of enthusiasm. What the LGBTQ plus community specifically, we feel safe with marriage.
We're delusional.
We're delusional.
Absolutely.
But it's easy to say, you know, we've got marriage and we're going to be okay. You know, it's just depressing.
And the fact that people still think that our marriage rights won't be taken away. Like, you know what I mean? Like, literally, people are delusional, boys. Like, they really don't think, oh, no, they won't touch us. We'll be okay. No, they're not going to go that far. Yeah. And with every day, with every breath, these guys go farther and farther and farther.
And I think that, just one last point on your question now. I think people have just sort of been knocked around and abused to the point where in this cycle that they're just afraid to speak up at this point because the governor's voice is loud and powerful.
Yeah.
Look, I know healthcare workers that are afraid to vote and be seen voting because they think that Governor DeSantis is going to come after their licenses, Al. These are just folks just trying to get by.
People think that, you know, when it comes to losing rights and privileges, that it's all going to happen in one foul swoop, but it's not.
Yeah.
We die by paper cuts, little cuts, nicks here and there, and that's exactly what's been happening over the past 2 years. And if we don't wake up and pay attention, you're exactly right. We are going to wake up one day, and your marriage, my marriage, if I ever get married, won't mean the same or won't be legally recognized anymore. And also, you know, speaking more broadly about Florida in general, the Democrats' challenge right now is we don't have a strong state Democratic Party that is doing the necessary groundwork to be able to compete. Voter registration has been terrible on the Democratic side for years. Several organizations, mostly third-party organizations, are trying very hard, working very hard to address that. But frankly, unless you have a party that is able and willing to go out there and organize, talk to voters, talk to them about why they should register as a Democrat, then what you end up with is declining voter registration numbers and NPA voters, and that's exactly what we're seeing now.
One last question. So to the crystal ball that, you know, one day we're going to wake up. Let's assume that that day is next Wednesday, 1 week from today, and we wake up and John's article projection comes true. I hope it doesn't, but it comes true. What is the LGBTQ community going to say next Wednesday? What's our reaction going to be?
We should be burning houses. We should be overturning cars. We should be saying, hey, you know what? Life without gays. We're not going to do shit. Okay? Excuse my French. We're not going to do anything. All right? But we won't do that. No. We won't.
What will the reaction be? Oh, what time does happy hour start?
Oh, God, John, that is awful.
That's really bad. I mean, don't you think that that maybe there will be more day of people showing up to vote? You're saying that the advanced voting isn't the early voting, but what about day of?
The trend is holding up with the percentages of people who are voting. So we can't expect a large surge on the last day because we've been seeing the it's a midterm, but we've been seeing decreased apathy even by midterm, and there's really no reason to think in Florida, which is so used to and has led the way on early voting, that people are ever going to just show up in bulk on the one day.
Are the owners of these happy hour bars you're talking about, are they encouraging their customers?
No.
To just take a few minutes out and go vote?
We just had Wicked Manners. We were talking about this before we came on the air. Fabulous event. Fabulous Halloween event. Let's assume that the PR numbers are true, that an estimated 40,000 people came. Every business in Wilton Manors participated in one way or another in Wicked Manners. All of the major bars, major staging. You couldn't ask for anything more for Halloween. There is no reference that there was an election going on 7 days later, exactly 7 days later. There was no reference to it. There's no signage of it. There's no video messaging. There's no candidates present. There is no, you need to vote 7 days from now. There was nothing. Zero. So 40,000, principally LGBT, in the heart of one of the greatest LGBTQ communities in America, and there was no reference to the election.
What a lost opportunity.
The LGBTQ community is going to have to go back to square one, back to our roots of organizing ourselves in houses. We're going to have to wake up on Wednesday morning, regardless of what the election happens in the election, and decide what are we willing to do to fight for and advance for our lives, our rights. For some people that'll be, getting involved in organizations like the National LGBTQ Task Force, SAVE, HRC, joining a local party, whatever you need to do, whatever you feel like you can do to make a difference, that's what we have to do.
Inaction is not action.
No.
Yeah.
No.
It isn't.
And Ryan, back to one point you made during your first comment about lamenting if you ever get married or not. Give me a call.
Are you really hitting on him during this? Are you really? Did he really just do that, Al? I'm going to move on. Oh, my God. Wow. Folks, next, we queer up South Florida and Florida. Wow, John. Record hate as Say Gay Florida Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith has $330,000 in anti-LGBTQ GOP TV ad buy in final days. One of America's most watched election campaigns, Smith received national attention for framing Don't Say Gay as part of the LGBTQ caucus in Tallahassee. During the 2022 session, he was a powerful voice against Governor Ron DeSantis. The radical GOP and the 2024 presidential hopeful won, but the bloody battle didn't stop there. 2 years ago, Smith won his Orlando district election by 9 points. But today, the world is completely different. The summer Governor DeSantis gerrymandered the district that increased Republican voters by 10 points, and now the district is a 50-50 toss-up. Then to put his boot to the LGBTQ Democrats' throat, he and the GOP are spending dramatic money against him. Unprecedented money. For example, an average state house campaign will spend about $180,000. Smith's Republican candidate opponent, who has never run for public office, has spent a jaw-dropping $1.5 million. You heard that right. A state house seat spending 8 times more than average. Worse, on Saturday, the GOP had a $330,000 new TV ad buy against Carlos Guillermo Smith for the last week of the campaign. The voice of the fight against DeSantis and Don't Say Gay took to Twitter yesterday, then followed up by email to say, quote, "Unfortunately, Halloween has arrived with some pretty scary news. Republicans are escalating their barrage of lies and false attacks on my record with a $330,000 TV ad buy against me this week. $1.5 million is a hell of a lot to spend on a state house race, but that's what the DeSantis machine is putting behind a barrage of lies and false attacks against me, one of Florida's only LGBTQ lawmakers. Why does the GOP want to unseat me this badly? What are they so afraid of?" End quote. It seems clear that Governor DeSantis is going to make an example of the LGBTQ plus candidate that achieved national and international attention opposing the culture war attack. This tomorrow on Queer News Tonight. Oh yeah, leave Carlos alone. My God, how is he even supposed to win against this? I mean, he literally has been part of the Queer News Tonight show on numerous occasions. There is no one like this gentleman. He really is fighting for our rights and tooth and nail. I mean, I don't think the guy sleeps. You know, I mean, how is he supposed to go against $1.5 million?
It's the clear proof of the authoritarian thinking machine that is coming out of Tallahassee. I immediately go back to Ryan's observation in terms of the poor output of the Democratic Party in Florida. The exact opposite is true for the Republican machine in Florida. The Republicans, the GOP broadly, certainly Governor DeSantis, the organizational structure has just been outstanding. If it was a Democratic machine, if we had the exact same machine, we would be going, my goodness, this is so incredible. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's against us, and it's against a candidate like Guillermo Smith.
Did Florida ever have any kind of Democratic machinery that could match?
Up until 1998,
that could match this, really.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was a conservative Democratic state. I mean, yeah, we can go back into the whole history of all that. But just to put this in perspective, the average, like the numbers you meant, the average state house seat is half of what they just did a television buy for this 1 week. Yeah. And it shows that the DeSantis machine, the Republican Florida machine, has money to burn. And they're a lot like Governor Newsom in California. He hasn't even campaigned this year, and he's up for re-election next week. Hasn't even campaigned. He's bought ads in Florida. He's bought ads in billboards. So it's we're kind of California. We're kind of red California in that there's just money to burn, and they don't care because they already know they're going to win. Now they're just pouring extra whipped cream on top.
Well, 2 quick points on that. One, Carlos Guillermo Smith and his entire team are knocking on doors and have been for months. Yeah. If there is anyone who can overcome this barrage in spending, it's Carlos. The second point is on Governor Ron DeSantis. This is not just about defeating Carlos Guillermo Smith. This is Ron DeSantis getting to play kingmaker. Yeah. And that's important for 2024 when he's going to have to go against Donald Trump in the Republican primary. He's trying to say, go with me. I am the one who can actually, build power for our party. He's trying to kneecap
in this example in terms of how he's turned his attention. He intentionally gerrymandered this district. This is not a candidate that could not win. Just 24 months ago, he won the district by 9 points. What the governor did is go in and change the district and move a traditional Orange County, Orlando district, more blue, more liberal, to bring in Seminole County on the northern side, which was more conservative. It changed 10 points because of just that gerrymandering change. And that gerrymandering change was over the objection of the GOP party in Tallahassee. The governor vetoed it and said, this is what we're going to do, and this was one of the outcomes. And Guillermo Smith is a target because the governor specifically wanted to do that. That's gerrymandering. Before the court is able to rule, and of course, the gigantic sums of money that are being spent in this. It reminds me in my student of history of the power of DeSantis is representative of the power of ancient Rome. Caesar could not be denied. And that's what we're watching right now. And that's why we're all so befuddled, because we don't know how to oppose Caesar. And he's living.
It's actually about Charlie Crist. And I don't know if you knew this, Al, but Charlie Crist is a Florida State University alumni. So my final point on that. LGBTQ plus civil rights. Far right.
And I believe we're going to see a video.
Today, a raging debate over what Twitter is now and will soon become.
This is a company that's been held hostage by its woke employees, held hostage by its woke users.
I don't think this is about politics. I think this is about safety. I really do. I think people like Ayatollah Khamenei shouldn't be on when they threaten Jews because people end up getting hurt.
Musk calls himself a free speech absolutist, arguing for fewer restrictions and lifting the ban on former President Trump, accused of encouraging violent neo-Nazi, anti-Semitic, and racist tweets. Musk trying to reassure the advertisers posted, Twitter obviously cannot become a free-for-all hellscape where anything can be said with no consequences.
In the few days since Elon Musk closed his deal to buy Twitter, far-right users have started to celebrate what they hope will be the ability to freely use homophobic and transphobic rhetoric and make threats on the social media platform. The day before Musk's Twitter acquisition, the far-right account Libs of TikTok tweeted out a post with the word groomer written over a dozen times. On Saturday, former UFC fighter Jake Shields, who has over 340,000 Twitter followers, appeared to be testing the boundaries of the company's moderation apparatus by posting a photo of a drag queen smiling at a young drag performer with a caption, quote, "This is a groomer." Shields added, I was characterizing LGBTQ plus people, particularly gay men and transgender women, as child sex abusers. On Friday, conservative podcaster Matt Walsh, who describes himself as a theocratic fascist, lauded Musk's acquisition of the company and encouraged his over 1 million followers to start misgendering trans people. Walsh said, quote, in just a year, we've recovered many years' worth of ground conservatives had previously surrendered. The liberation of Twitter couldn't have come at a more opportune time. Now we can ramp up our efforts even more. And you know, this reminds me of an attack, a quote that Andrew Gillum used in his debate against Ron DeSantis back in 2018. And it's, I'm not calling Ron DeSantis a racist, but the racists think he's racist. That's exactly what people like Matt Walsh are echoing when they're saying this. It doesn't matter what Elon Musk is intending to do by liberating or freeing Twitter. The people who think that he is liberating it for them are feeling empowered right now. The racists, the homophobes, the transphobes, the neo-Nazis, they feel empowered by Musk's acquisition of Twitter.
Yeah, and they say that his daughter is LGBTQ and came out and completely cut herself off and distanced herself from her billionaire father. So she literally put her money where her mouth is. But I have to say, on this first point, Matt Walsh is absolutely correct. Over the last few years, they have regained the ability to be able to hate and say things that we have spent 50 years getting people to not do, for shaming them into the racist closet. And now they're out and it.
Hate. I, for one, will be off Twitter soon. Screw that. I don't need it. I don't. Yeah. You know, doesn't Trump have a social media also? That
if you respect yourself, if you love yourself, you gotta get off there.
There is one silver lining to the story of Elon Musk of Twitter, and I'm not saying that I believe this, but I just echo a narrative that is being said a lot. The one possible silver lining of what is happening is that Elon Musk restores Donald Trump's Twitter account, and there is value in the argument is there is value in restoring Twitter account for Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is a more reasonable and understanding crazy than a Ron DeSantis, and that Donald, or the Democrat, his primary enemy is Ron DeSantis. And there is this philosophy of discussion thought that is saying the enemy is because we need Donald Trump to come back, because we need his brand of crazy to defeat his brand of crazy, so we can then defeat his brand of crazy. It's an interesting concept.
I don't know. I seem to remember a lot of liberals and Democrats in 2016 who were praying that Donald Trump would get the GOP nomination because he would be so easy to beat.
Right?
Yeah, we've been down this road.
It's frightening.
Well, I don't need to touch the stove twice.
Yeah,
no, that's
exactly.
Right.
Well, except we're touching the stove or the nuclear bomb. DeSantis could be the nuclear bomb. That's it. I'm not saying I believe this. I'm relaying a conceptual idea that is widely being discussed.
Now we're going to queer up trans rights. This election will cancel up to 200,000 votes because of trans-face voting restrictions. On Election Day in 2016, Henry Seaton, a transgender man who was then 18, showed up to his local polling place in a suburb of Nashville, Tennessee, to vote another poll worker to look at Seaton's identification. Then, in front of the Nazarene church where he was supposed to vote, the poll workers asked him about what they saw as a discrepancy between his ID and his appearance. Seaton, who is now 24, said, quote, "I had to out myself as transgender," end quote. He had legally changed his name at the time, but the gender marker on his Tennessee ID still said female. With early voting for next week's election underway in many states, Tennessee is one of 8 where they could face particularly challenging obstacles at the polls this month because of both strict voter ID laws and a simmering. As per the ACLU, this year alone, more than 160 state bills to restrict trans rights have been proposed across the country. I mean, this is a serious crisis. 200,000 is a lot of votes. That's a lot of votes. And to have them at risk in this particular midterm election, it's terrifying. It's really terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to hear her true, authentic self, and it didn't match her voter registration card. She had an issue at the place, and she went, took her wig off, took her makeup off, and then went back in and voted as a boy. She had,
Courageous.
I will do what I have to do.
Yes.
And, you know, that story breaks my heart. And these laws are disgusting. We don't need to rehash that, but I will say this is another example of why signature on your ballot, you can go down and cure the ballot by showing your ID or whatever. That's why early voting is so important, especially for communities where you can expect to be challenged routinely at the polls.
You know, I want to give kudos to the Biden administration because they actually have tried to address this already in their first term by making U.S. passports, giving the option for people to not select a male or female gender,
But an X.
but
An X.
do the X. And in many states, I think almost all of them, check your own state rules and requirements, but U.S. passports are a valid form of photo ID for voting.
Yeah.
You know, one last thought. The story that you just told about the person that can't be who they are just to cast a Democratic vote in America. You know who angers me on that is not the system. Who angers me over a situation like that is the LGBTQ community that doesn't stand up for the T in our acronym that says this is the reason why you should be an activist. This is the reason why you should voice support because you have family members in your acronym that are having their rights destroyed, humiliated, punished for being who they are. How is that any different than gay men in 1969? And we have forgotten. We just have forgotten, and that is so incredibly disappointing.
Well, now we are proud of our special partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale and home of Advent drag shows. Supporting that partnership, we are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine Cathedral at the Happening Out television studios. We broadcast Sunshine's Sunday International Service at 10:30 a.m. Eastern with more than 30,000 people watching every week.
Bicycle ride in the country, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
Well, we finished tonight's Queer News headlines with a segment from LGBTQ partner, news partner, advocate, and writer Alex Cooper. Grindr's creator launches a new gay app called Moto. The founder of Grindr, Joel Simkai, has launched a new gay and queer matchmaking app. The app from Simkai and Alex Hostetler became available in New York City and Miami starting yesterday, November 1st, in 2018. The new app focuses on finding the right people, not just the closest, on the quality of interactions, not the quantity, and that's according to a press release. It provides a set of personalized people for the user to view. They can decide to pursue interaction with someone in the group or not. You can read much more about this at advocate.com.
That is today's news for the LGBTQ+ community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ+ evening news show.
If our community is important to you, then share this news with your friends and family. Are you, like most of America, part of our very large television audience watching this live LGBTQ+ news broadcast right now on Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, and
we need your support. If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world.
This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ+ stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and on behalf of these LGBTQ+ reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including FayWhat, John Hayden, Ryan Hurst, and Gregg Shapiro. We will see you daily at 8 p.m. And to all of our LGBTQ plus community, we wish you
Good night.
Bye.
And everyone.